First up is minutes from last month. Staff, any comments on that, or?
Nope.
Okay, any questions from commissioners? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next up, bills. Staff, what do we have this month?
Sure. Looking at bills from last month, the bigger expenditures we had was for the 213 Ramsey Street property. We did do some air conditioner replacement, HVAC work in the building. A couple of years ago, we did have the air conditioner unit stolen, and so we're replacing that, and so some expenditures that went with that. The other expenditure we had for $11,000 was for Block 28. This is the last residential relocation payment for one of the apartment units there. So that individual has moved out completely, and we've satisfied our obligations for that. Facade improvement grant payment, and then a couple other expenditures beyond that. I can stand for any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes.
All right, all in favor of approving minutes?
Bills.
Oh, bills, I'm sorry, bills, thank you.
Bills. I'm looking at minutes.
My mistake.
Sorry.
All right,
I move to approve the bills.
excellent.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving bills signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, motion carries. Business, we have 4 items on the agenda tonight, it looks like. Staff, would you like to lead us off with the first?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. So as you'll remember, in July, representatives of the Dakota County Community Development Agency spoke to a joint group of HEDRA members and city council members to discuss the Local Affordable Housing Aid, or LAHA, funds and potential collaboration opportunities. In 2024, the city is receiving $114,000 and change in LAHA funding, which must be committed within 3 years and then spent by the 4th year. The CDA is requesting to collaborate with the city to use its LAHA funding to support 2 expanded programs, the Home Improvement Loan Program and the Radon Mitigation Grant Program. There's a more in-depth explanation of the programs in the packet, but just a quick synopsis of it. The Home Improvement Loan Program provides up to $35,000 in 0% deferred loan to single-family homeowners earning no more than 80% of area median income. Pardon me. And the Radon Mitigation Grant Program provides free radon testing to clients of that home improvement loan program, and provides a grant funding for radon mitigation to those homeowners with incomes less than 80 or at or below 80% AMI. So the CDA is asking for a minimum funding commitment of 3 years and for direction on how the funding should be allocated, at least a minimum amount of that. So knowing that, and if when we do the percent allocations, those two don't add up to 100%, the remainder will be put in a flex account that can be used to fund those 2 programs, provide gap financing to affordable housing projects. So the percentage that we will discuss in the resolution is the minimum percentage that we want to allocate our LAHA dollars towards those 2 programs. Pardon me. Yeah, so the actions requested are to determine the minimum percentage that we want to fund those 2 programs, and then to approve the resolution. But I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Go ahead.
Thanks, Alex. I've stated multiple times, affordable housing is like #1 for me in the world of public policy. A couple things I just want to go through, just so I'm completely clear.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-year, it would be a 3-year agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And so the funds for instance, the funds for 2014 do not have to be spent by December of 2025. We can do 3. Oh, sorry. We can do 3. I mean, all those 3 years are bunched together, so they would all have to be spent by December of 2000, what is it, 2007 or 2008, whatever.
So it will be on a, yeah,
2028.
it's all right.
Oh my gosh, I'm at 25 years.
So no, each year's funds will be, you have the 4 years from when you receive
Okay.
those funds. So for the 2024, we have to commit those funds by 2027 and then have them spent by 2028. And then each
It'll
year
go up
follow,
from
it'll
there.
go from there. So,
For-
yeah, we'll be
Thank you.
committing those 3 years of funds. So then they'll be, we'll have committed them. So our hands will be kind of clear of those.
Okay.
And they'll be in the CD's hands to use.
And I'm in support of this, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but one of my concerns was if we don't use them, they go to the state general fund. And I don't want to see any money that's coming into our community go to the state fund because there wasn't enough applicants.
Yeah.
We didn't market it right. The staff couldn't process it fast enough. I mean, whatever those, because we are committed for 3 years. We can't get out of this agreement. And I just, that's one of my concerns is making sure that those funds will be used for this and we don't think that we're going to have any problems spending that,
Yeah,
right?
so, yes.
Okay.
Staff had our bi-monthly meeting just this afternoon with the CDA and the wait list that the county and the city has for the loan program. And with the radon mitigation grant being in conjunction with the rehab loan program, there's no question that the funding will get spent, especially with being able to, if we are concerned about not spending purely on those programs, we can have a lower percentage and then put more to that city flex account for other affordable housing projects. And then the funds, if say we're getting towards the end of year 3 and they haven't been committed, they can be put into an affordable housing trust fund, and that will count as them being committed and spent. So then they can be used at a future date.
We've got a backup plan.
Yes, so the designation from the state is that's not the preferred initial use of those. They'd rather see those dollars be activated sooner, but that is a backup if we do hit a point where not enough of that money's being spent. But the CDA has assured us that they have applicants ready to get that funding.
Okay. And I will say, I spent a good part of my career working with the CDA, and I have nothing but respect for the folks there. I think they do tremendous work. I think they've got their pulse on what's needed in our communities. I like the idea that we're doing 3 years because I don't know that we have staff to administer. I mean, they're not huge dollars, but I looked at over 600,000 probably in 3 years, right? And that's not small money either. And for anybody who gets it, it means the world. So I am in support of it because, and I understand CDA wants to put money in these programs because they want to get that staff. And that staff is going to be used not just for our community, but for all the communities in Dakota County. I would like, with that said, in the future, I would like, and the CDA mentions this, I would like to see some of that money that's going to be turned around and some of the new money being used for upfront programs for gap financing for, this is wonderful, and this takes, gives some burden off folks who are already in their houses. We all know getting into a house for folks is equally as important. So just when we're going through this process, in the next few years, I really want us to think about how we, that's best used. And like I said, even if it's $25,000 for a family to be able to afford to get a mortgage, that's a big deal for that family. And so that's my thought. Thanks for listening to me.
Maybe we've covered this in previous meetings, but this feels like the front end of that money. On the back end, these are loans, so they do need to be paid back, correct? When that money gets paid back, does that come back to HEDRA, or what happens to that money that gets paid back?
That is a great question. I believe it stays with the CDA in, so that's a 0% interest loan. I believe that fund would go back to the program fund that it came from. And the way the CDA operates, and I can double check in case I'm misremembering, but the CDA does operate like the city's funds that we put towards this. It's its own bucket. It's not getting put into the Dakota County bucket to pool with all of the other cities' LAHA dollars. So it would get its own account. So that's
it'd go
the way
back to
they
the
operate.
county then.
Yeah, so it'd
Go back
be,
to the
I do
CDA.
believe it'd go
Okay.
back to the CDA.
Yeah, my belief as well, Commissioner, it would stay with the CDA allocated towards use directly within the city. So it'd almost be, well, it is a revolving loan program. So funds would build up over the years and be able to help more individuals out.
Perfect, okay. And then I know it's a 0% loan, but what are the payment terms on that loan? Is it 5 years or?
I believe it's at the sale of the property. I'd have to double check.
Okay, so it's kind of
It's
a,
a fully deferred
okay,
loan, so I believe it's at the sale of the property.
okay. But the homeowner can pay it back at any time before that? Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Alex, the question I pose is is there, I think the support for the program is the right idea. The question I pose, and it's kind of like it's been talked about a little bit about, okay, when the home is sold for the next individual, the payout has to come back. And that's at a 0%, and it goes back to the CDA. And now, did I just hear correctly that that money is not a countywide, or is it a countywide back to the county even though it was a city allotment?
The way that I understand it, and we can confirm with the CDA, the way I understand it is that money would then go back to the Hastings specific
Okay, that's what I
loan
wanted to find
loan
out for
fund.
sure.
So
I
it's a
kinda-
Hastings specific revolving loan that's just administered through the CDA.
Okay, I wanted that a little bit clearer.
Yeah, Commissioner, it's almost akin to our CDBG funding that we have throughout there. We've got specific funding. In this case, Dakota County gets it directly. However, they've allocated a portion to us, and they manage that account on our behalf. And the funds from a particular city stay with that city. And with the CDA, it's akin to HEDRA and the council. It's a completely different entity than the county itself from
Right. I
the,
just wanted to have a little more clarification on that. My second question is, or comment is, the radon program as part of this, I think that that's an extremely important issue for the city of Hastings. We are in the hot zone for radon in Dakota County, and, you know, there's not a lot. 15, 20 years ago, NSP and Minigasco both had programs for radon protection, and they both gone away because they didn't care or whatever. But this needs to be at the forefront of this program and say, okay, here, folks, here's the way to get radon protection for your home at a 0% interest and get it done and make it a lot safer for you and your kiddos living there. And I think that needs to be at the forefront of the discussion so people really get the idea that, hey, if the city needs to promote it a little bit more, that's an important issue. And it really, you know, radon is as important as the water issue in this community, but it's not being addressed, and it needs to be looked after and talked about and acted on. Thank you.
Alex, how will these programs be promoted?
So the CDA does a lot of their own promotion for the programs. The city can promote them as well. I know that for the loan program, there's no shortage of a wait list already on these. So The programs are known about. Right now, it's having the staff at the CDA to be able to execute on these loans and get those moved. But we can make sure that the city is promoting the programs as well.
You talked about a wait list. I guess, can you just speak to what the application process looks like, high level? And how are we managing, is it first comes, first serve, or are there requirements within the application process that serve maybe families that are in a lower percentage of that AMI than higher percentage?
I'm not familiar with their application process since that's ran completely by the CDA.
Okay, so it's not the city, even though the dollars are committed to the city, but not necessarily to HEDRA. So it is a CDA application and.
Yes,
Perfect,
that's
thanks.
correct.
I believe we had a question from, okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up, just one thing that Commissioner Pemble was talking about, the radon program mitigation. My understanding is that, and I was looking at the percentages, trying to figure out that they're really making that program mostly or exclusively available to the people that will be doing the rehab loans. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the way I understand
So
it.
not just anybody out there. It'll be the people in the rehab programs.
Yep.
And then the other follow-up to that was, the percentages must be based on the fact that we think there's going to be 7 to 10 loans, so therefore 37% would take care of the radon, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay.
And those percentages that are in the notes do add up to 100%. That is before our meeting occurred this afternoon, where I learned that any gap between 100% would just go towards a flex fund.
And my last question is, when we met with the CDA folks, they didn't know, I mean, they hadn't gotten a lot of feedback yet from localities. Do we know any more yet? What if other cities are signing on to these two specific programs, or?
From the meeting that we had today, there were, I believe, the majority of the cities in Dakota County were interested in contributing to the program, either 100% of their dollars or some percentage of their dollars. Some cities have more city-specific housing programming that they are engaged in, so they're saving some of their dollars for that.
So the CDA the staffing that they're looking to add to be able to do this looks pretty solid, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think that's the reason for the commitment on there too, is they want to be able to hire individuals to best implement the program as well on that. And with the wait list that they have, that makes sense. With housing operations within the city, we've deferred our responsibilities for housing programs and housing assistance to the CDA. They do a good job in implementing those programs. So this when I looked at these funds coming forward, this looked like something that would be best handled by the CDA at this point. That being said, there may be a point in the future where a specific project comes up that we may want to take a look at something different. But I think an important aspect of the housing legislation was to make sure that the money gets out and into people's hands and not just banked. Right. So that was kind of part of my looking at this and review.
I believe we had a question from Dan.
Thank you. For clarification, is this resolution a commitment by HEDRA, or is it a recommendation to the city council? Are these funds to the city proper versus to HEDRA? Does HEDRA have the direct authority to contract with CDA?
That's a good clarification there. I believe the funds have gone directly to the city, so this would be a recommendation by the body that the council would need to take final action on.
Okay. One last question. So it sounds like if this is a revolving fund that keeps coming back when people sell properties and put the money back in to the CDA for use within our city, I'm guessing then the one risk of losing that would be in the event of foreclosure or condemnation of a property. Otherwise, it'll take a while to get it back probably, but it's there.
It is. I mean, there's risk involved in it. I think the risk is negligible on it. Typically, what happens in these type of loan programs is upon our, used to be refinancing, you don't see that as much anymore, but refinancing or sale of a property, this commitment would need to be paid. And so that's when a lot of it would come back there. And with the general rising in home prices, I don't think the CDA has seen that as an issue. But it could happen, yes.
And then final question, Dave mentioned the water situation that we're working out with as a city. Would this be, looking at the document, it looks like that'd probably be an eligible cost for people that qualify for the loan as a filtration system within the home? Would that be in the interim between now and when the city has their new system online?
The way that the programs, that have been laid out, I believe that would be ineligible as of right now, but that's a great point that we could ask and clarify.
Yeah. If that's within scope, I would anticipate the funds would probably go quickly. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners or anybody else?
Make a motion to approve the resolution,
2024.
2024-14 or something.
Okay. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor of approving the resolution, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay? Okay, motion carries. All right, Alex, are you taking us through the second one as well?
Sure am.
All right.
Alrighty. Commissioners, a little more procedural for us. We're familiar with these ones. Facade improvement grant. So HEDRA received an application from the joint owners of the parking lot behind the Masonic Block buildings. So Barb Hollenbeck, Halfstead Real Estate LLC, and David and Stacy Lofgren. They are planning on filling and repairing an existing pothole in the parking lot, overlay and repair the existing parking lot surface, restripe the parking spaces, and remove an existing flower bed. Staff discussed that while this has not been what facade improvement funds have been used for in the past, we felt this is still in the spirit of these funds. It is improving the facade of downtown, and private parking improvement is something that we felt warranted that. So I will stand for any questions.
Alec, I'm going way back before it was ever tarred, that parking lot. And there was always, during a heavy rain, that was a mud hole. And it was tarred over, and I don't remember if there was some kind of drainage deal put together. John, do you know?
I'm unfamiliar with the parking lot as far as the history goes.
I'm just thinking that there should be some requirement about some kind of drainage. I mean, just not to tear up the blacktop as it is and then re-tar it back down without having some knowledge about how water flow is going to impact. I mean, they're fixing the building, the downspouts have changed, there's going to be more water flow. How is this all going to react with a new blacktop parking lot driveway access where it's actually, recessed in from the street level? I'm kind of concerned about, okay, should there be like water runoff looked at there a little bit before allowing the funds to go forward? I don't know, I'm just asking, because I can remember back when it was a mud hole in the 60s, and it's like, I don't know if it's any better now or not.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm unaware of the condition of the property. That being said, in a typical parking lot project, if you're repaving and you're not doing anything with the sub-base, curbing, whatnot with it, there is generally not a review or a permit required by the city. When we have a situation in which you are regrading or redoing the sub-base on it, then we have some of these drainage requirements come into practice on that. In this situation here, is it more of a repaving than a reconstruction?
Yes.
So if this was not a grant project here, there wouldn't be any review by the city in doing that.
My only question, looking at the apartments in the building adjacent to the east there, we don't want to create a situation where they're getting flooded out during heavy rains.
Okay.
How much money do we have left in the facade improvement program?
When I looked before receiving these applications, we still had north of $30,000.
And if we don't use them by the end of the year, what happens to those funds?
I believe they roll over into
Roll over.
next year.
Okay.
I'll just piggyback on that. And we had talked before about expanding this beyond this perimeter. I mean, I think maybe if we need to really look at that next year, if we're sitting on top of a pretty good sized fund balance.
Thank you. I really appreciate that point, that we do have a fund balance. And I also, what I really like about this resolution is that it is creative, and it's a good way to think about like how we present as a city and how we have the resources to support business owners and property owners who want to make improvements. So I would move to approve this resolution 2415.
Okay, all in favor of moving forward and approving Resolution 2024-15, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Next one, Resolution 2024-16, facade improvement for 106 Second Street, the Quarry Tap House.
Yes, so staff received an application from Sarah and Randy Stinger, who represent 106 Second Street East, the Quarry Tap House. The stucco wall along the street over here that has the mural on it is on its last legs, unfortunately. So they are getting the existing damaged stucco removed, inspecting the wall beneath it to make sure there's no repairs needed to the brick underneath, and then installing and applying a new stucco finish over the full wall. The owners do recognize that the replacement of the stucco will result in the loss of the mural, and they are interested and committed to having a new mural painted next spring. Yeah, I will stand for any questions.
I would just like to publicly thank them for doing that. That's money out of their pocket, and it adds just so much character to downtown, especially coming across the bridge. It's, a first impression thing. Thank you, Corey, for making that commitment.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that as well. I think that's something from the city council perspective. We recently created an arts and culture commission. It would be terrible to see one of our beautiful murals taken down the year that we do that. But Randy and Sarah are great community members and business owners, and I know they'll do right by our belief in arts and culture. So thank you to them.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Yeah.
I'd just like to say that, yep, I'd like to see the mural or a mural like it. I know when the McNamara's owned it and it was the Maccabee, that they had Donnelly Stucco come in and restucco or face stucco it at that time 50-some years ago. And it's like, yep, it's time to replace. And if the new owners are willing to commit and have, additional, use that new surface to build something there or create something that would be inviting as you're coming southward into town, that would be great. And I commend them for it. Thank you. I also will move the 24-15 resolution as a motion.
16 is the quarry.
16.
Yep, there you go. Okay, all in favor of approving the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, that motion carries as well. We are on to item D, Resolution 2024-17, regarding the exclusive land sale negotiations for River City Properties at 317 East 3rd.
Hey, thank you, Commissioners. Just give an update here on what we have accomplished here with Mr. Seward pertaining to his land use negotiations and the project that we have right now, the purchase agreement. You recall back in July, purchase agreement was set for expiration, HEDRA extended that until October 1st in order to set specific terms and milestones for completion. We've had some discussions with Mr. Seward over that time period. We're not there yet. And it's not a knock on Luke by any means, but the project is not at the point where it is so that we could thoughtfully enter into a negotiation or enter into an agreement that would not be amended again in the future. That being said, I do want to encourage Luke to continue working on the project. And what I'm proposing tonight is the adoption of a resolution that would provide him a one-year exclusive rights to the property, which means we would not be able to sell or negotiate sale of that property with another entity until October 31st of 2025. What this does is it provides him some certainty that he can move forward with the project without the HEDRA yanking the property out from him, and he can work at his own pace at this point. Within the resolution, there's a couple of qualifications as to when we might look at a purchase agreement again. One of them would be when there is a defined project. At this point, there was a project that was approved in the past. That project approval expired at August 1st of this year. There's been some discussion with Luke that he may want to continue with that project. He may want to continue with the modification of that project. So we need to know what the project is at this point, and Luke is working through that. Second of which is the pro forma itself. In order for us to enter into an agreement, we need to know that the project is going to be viable. The reason that we have these purchase agreements is so that one of our goals of this board is to ensure that there's economic development that occurs with the sale of properties that we have. If we're in a situation in which we transfer the property and the project goes south for some reason, we don't want to be left without the opportunity to provide that property to another entity. So that's really the reason why we're involved in looking at the financials of a project when we're in a position of providing a land transfer. The second of this is Luke has hinted at asking for TIF in the future. As I've stated to the board and as to Luke in the past, back about 5 years ago, we spent a significant amount of time looking at the price of the property, ultimately deciding that we would transfer the property for $1 instead of the market price, and that would be our contribution to the project. That being said, I wouldn't recommend that we would do a TIF district and a land write-down at the same time. I don't think that's good policy, but kind of getting a little off track here, that's a decision for a different day. So what I've got before you tonight is the resolution. The resolution would provide Luke Seward and River City Investments a one-year exclusive on the property itself, and then the certain conditions that would be forward that we could consider in the future. So hopefully we'll have more on this one and perhaps a project to come forward in the future. So I can stand for any questions.
Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Pemble?
John, there, in the paperwork I saw, Mr. Seward does not have a deal that he can say, well, this is a lost cause, I could back out of it. I didn't see that written in there anywhere. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm kind of delving into the thoughts of Mr. Seward at this point, but I think in from his standpoint, he's still seeking to develop a project. And he believes that if certain modifications could be made or market conditions are different, that the project could be viable. And that may be the case, but we just need to see evidence of that before we enter into any agreements.
Okay.
Commissioner Horsch?
First, thanks for continuing to do this. I know it's been a lot of work a good fair amount of work on city staff to continue to drive this forward. You know, I still want to see this go forward. I mean, part of it is Seawards are community members, and that is a consideration for me. That said, I don't see that there's a whole lot of practical difference between the purchase agreement versus the exclusive rights that he'll have, other than the fact that financing may be an issue until he gets a purchase agreement. So I'm assuming, first of all, is there any real significant difference in the world between what he's going to versus having a signed purchase agreement? And then I'm assuming if things fall right, then we get the purchase agreement, and then he can go forward with financing with the purchase agreement in place.
Sure. Look, I'll answer it in kind of two parts. One from, I think, from the developer's perspective, whether the resolution is satisfactory. From the email conversations I've had with Luke, this appears to be satisfactory to him. As far as the purchase agreement difference for us, we would be in a position of amending a purchase agreement with the knowledge that we would have to amend it again. And so we'd be spending time and money for our city attorney to draft an agreement that frankly is going to be redone in the future. So I just don't think that's good policy at this point.
Makes sense. Thanks, John. Thanks, Alex.
The first go-around with the purchase agreement, how long did that take to get approved and get going?
Commissioner, I think the purchase agreement, that could be a matter of a week or two, putting something together. I don't think that's going to be terribly time-consuming to do it. I think it's more of a matter of what that's going to consist of. The question that's outstanding right now is whether there's going to be TIF assistance requested for this project, and whether the board would be amenable to that, and whether the TIF assistance would be enough to bring this project across the line. There's just a lot of unanswered questions on that.
I feel like this property's been tied up for 4 years and have a hard time committing an entire year again, when it appears that, you know, commodity prices aren't going to get really much better from where they're at. Interest rates maybe go down. I don't see what the city gets out of this by waiting another year and locking that property up for 5 years.
It's a fair point, Commissioner, on that. I would feel differently if this property could be developed on its own. If this was a piece of property in which another entity could come forward, I would certainly not be recommending that tonight. In this situation, the property is too small to be developed on its own and really couldn't be developed by anyone else but for the property Seaward owns. So I think the risk that we're out is limited on this one, but it's a really good point.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Pemble?
I guess I'll go back to the comments that were a couple of months ago that, you know, looking at the 213, 215 Ramsey property and basically the half of the block, that to me is the goal for the city, to create something in that whole half a block. And I don't, you know, yes, the Seawarts are local and the process has been kind of difficult for the months or years that this has been evolving, but it's just, to me, it's like, is there no way that we can find somebody that would be interested in developing the half a block that would bring in a good substance for our community and fit into the neighborhood and be a valuable asset? Because this process here, looking at, just as you said, the small location, the area, it's like, are we kind of shooting ourselves in the foot by not saying, okay, time's enough, we need to move on and look for other options? And that's, to me, if we commit and the process moves ahead and then it stumbles along somewhere, and where's the city at, and how do we try and recoup that and yet look for the advantage for the half a block? And that's kind of my dissertation. You don't need to answer.
Okay. I'll add a couple of points to what you, Commissioner. No, I see what you're saying there. Ultimately, perhaps the half the block is the project that comes forward on that one. At this point, with the commitment that is being requested tonight with the exclusivity, it wouldn't prevent Mr. Seaward from potentially acquiring more property there. Any other project that would come forward that would include the half block would need to get the property from Luke anyway. So he would have to be a willing party on that one.
I just feel a little frustrated in that.
I get
Commissioner Fox?
Thank you, Your Honor. I share that, right? We would like to see things done. We just, a year ago, finished a 15-year project on redevelopment. So, I mean, we do have to have patience too. And it's a hard balance to be up here and have expectations and not see things completed. I do have a follow-up to Commissioner Pemble's question, though. What, from your perspective in soliciting developers in the last many, many years, and Alex, all of your years of service as well. What is the temperament for a lot like that? Like, would we actually find a developer in a year? And if not, I would be very thrilled to recommend this go forward.
Yeah. I would state with the project at hand here, which is with our lot and Seawart's lot, which is 1/4 of the block. From the developers I've spoken to, that's a very challenging project on there. When you take a look at getting half of that block, you could put up something twice as large as many units. You know, you're looking at something akin to what we just did with Lake Isabel Flats. That becomes more viable. So I don't want to say that the project that Luke is proposing would not work. Perhaps it would. But I think it's a more difficult project there.
Mm-hmm. And to thank you, John, and to Mr. Sewart's credit, he's come to us and said this isn't mathing, right? And we need it too in order to have it be successful for a developer, but also successful for us. So I'm in support of this resolution.
Just to clarify, the way it's written, there's no contingency on these dates that we put out there for milestones? I mean, like, if he misses these, it doesn't void the exclusive agreement, does it?
Very good point there. Yeah, the project milestones that were provided by Luke are not part of the resolution at all. So these are not part of that resolution.
And some of them are just like him having sent things out, right? I mean, I think I would probably feel better if we had a handful of specific milestones that were tangible, where you could see, here's my quotes I've received, here's the letter from the bank, like actual milestones that we can check, and if we're not hitting them. I mean, if we miss some of the ones early on in December or January, we probably already know the project isn't happening, right? We might as well just cut bait.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Commissioner. What I come back to is there's been a lot of missed completion dates and milestones on this project, and
That's my concern.
I'm at the point right now where we'll give you a year. You work on your own pace. If you can get to a point where we can negotiate an agreement, great. If we can't, we'll take this up in a year. But the milestones have not been terribly helpful so far to prod the project along.
I hear what you're saying about giving him a year. I feel like we've given him 4. Also, I feel like our agreement expired on October 1st, correct? So he's been operating the last 10 days without an agreement. And I think going back to why we've been so patient is because it's my understanding that he needs an agreement to go to the developer to quote out what this would cost to build, to give the financing, or no one's going to basically talk to him if he doesn't have the agreement in place, right?
It certainly helps with financing to have a commitment on a property, yes.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm in a position now where until he can get the math to math, then he can come back and ask for the property.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get into his business, but has he contemplated like any other kind of housing stock on that block, or is it just 100% apartments?
Commissioner, he's looked, from my understanding, it's been apartments. There's been different iterations of apartment that he has floated by us to either add units or perhaps make the building larger. These type of changes are beyond what we approved in the original site plan. So I told him, perhaps, but we need to go through the review again. The other portion of that is dealing with parking on that one. The more units you put into that building, the less parking is available. And when we approved that building, we approved it at about the lowest parking ratio that we could. So I told him we're reviewing the zoning code right now. I don't know if that will change, but as it sits right now, anytime you take out parking for this project to put in a unit, you're falling further behind our minimum requirements for parking down there.
business, but they build stuff, so, you know, there's other housing options for that block besides building. I mean, there's, you know, you go down the list, so just throwing that out there.
Can I make just a quick comment to Commissioner Anderson? Your point of saying once he gets the project numbers to work out, then he can come to us and seek an agreement. That's, even if we enact this resolution, that's still what's going to have to happen. This is just the exclusivity to assuage Mr. Seward, that we're not going to turn around and try to find someone else for it for this amount of time. And it's something that John and I have discussed, that from that aspect, that's okay. It's not then on us to, hey, our purchase agreement is coming to a close. Where are you at with these things? It's the onus is entirely on Mr. Seward going forward, with just the exclusivity deal puts very little work on our end of things.
Okay, any other discussion? Do we have any motions?
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2417. Is that it? Yeah.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of approving, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Get a voice vote on this one. Okay, Commissioner Dunn.
Nay.
Okay, Commissioner Golovich.
I think I'll abstain just because of the
Fair.
possible financing.
Understood. Commissioner Carter.
Aye.
Okay. And Commissioner Johnson.
Nay.
Nay. And Commissioner Hanson.
Nay.
Nay. And Commissioner
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So we have got 3 ayes and 3 nays at this point, so we do not have a majority to adopt the resolution at this point. So at this point, no action would be taken, and we will continue to work with Luke, and perhaps he can come back with some more information and for a project agreement in the future. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're to updates now, is that accurate?
I got one big update today that's not even in here. No.
Wait, they're moving to Hastings?
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays are moving up here. No. We have a signed purchase agreement for Wells Fargo. So we got that this morning. Actually, Trevor knew that already.
Yeah.
But we got the present owner's signature on that, so we're moving forward towards closing on that property by the end of the month. So I
Excellent.
think we can do it, and that'll be a great step. At this point, we'll have 90% of the block. So we move into a more interesting phase right now, which is going to be, well, great. What do we do with this property and who wants to develop it? So we're going to move into that shortly here. So that's great news. Current 33, last building has been constructed, operational, 211 units, apartments altogether. What I've heard is that that first building is about 100% leased. So they're doing well down there, which is great. Highway 55 small area plan, we did have a committee meeting with the Council and Planning Commission last week to talk about this. This is looking at future land use along the 55 corridor as you move west into Nininger Township. So we had a good discussion. We're going to be bringing back more specifics in the future, looking at wrapping this project up end of the year, early 25 on this. Other big thing we're working on is the zoning code. We're still working on that internally. Have meetings with the consultant next week on that. A lot of heavy lifting there, but we'll get it ready for public consumption shortly. Other than that, Rio Grande Express, we're getting close to being able to schedule a closing date, and then they can start the construction on that project there. I think that's probably all I had for new updates.
John, I will give you another update. Vermilion Shores had lifted 3 pieces today,
Okay.
so they're over there working.
Yeah.
All right. I've heard that they did some stick building there on the modular project in 47, and they're moving modulars, so it's moving along. It's moving along.
on both sides, on the east side and on the west side.
Okay.
They're working at noon today.
Well, good. That's good to hear.
Oh, geez.
Commissioner Horst?
Yeah, so tell me again, when do we think we're gonna close on Wells Fargo?
By the end of the month.
Okay, and so were we relying on Rio Grande first, or was that?
Oh, as far as
or what-
payment goes?
Yeah, as far
No,
as
we,
coming up with dollars, I can't remember.
yeah, we've
Okay.
the primary portion of that is gonna come out of the fund balance that we have. And then we've cut some other programs out and, programs, but funding reallocations, so it's not dependent on Rio Grande, no.
It should be an issue. We'll own a bank. Okay. Well, I think that's it for updates.
That's all I
So
have.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, meeting